I had no idea that this path would evolve the way that it did. And it was a complete blossoming of, the flower of life that we are and that I am, that we all are. And out from that, when I shed the layers and I began to purify my mind and purify my heart and come back into that essence of love, the universe became my guidance. The divine became my providence. And my commitment and devotion was to that. It was no longer an act of discipline. I didn't need to discipline myself to eat a certain way. I no longer needed to discipline myself to, carry on with good habits, if you want to call it that. It just became so profoundly evident and clarified and crystallized that why would I continue to infringe pain, harm, and suffering on my body or my mind, knowing that I am a gift, as we all are, a temple for the divine, here to shed light on a greater story, the story of creation. And why not harness and channel my energy into that story as opposed to the story based upon the false identity? And that's where I began to kind of flourish.
So, for people that are struggling to listen to their inner voice, so they hear, just be your authentic self, or listen to your inner voice to do the things that will support you, make you feel better, or that will, lead you to the foods that are most nourishing for you. But there's so much noise. They're struggling to hear what's really for them. Do you have any suggestions on how to get that clarity?
Yes. Um, Most of the time you actually hear it. It's a resistance to actually complying with it. So we all hear that inner voice, but it's a choice. And this is where courage and strength comes. And the lack of courage and strength happens, I believe personally, from the lack of knowing who we truly are, for the lack of knowing our true purpose here on earth. When we don't have anything beautiful to hold on to because life has gotten ugly, and maybe perhaps our world is not as beautiful as it should be in a moment, it's very hard to apply the notion of serving thyself in the greatest altitudes when we don't even know who we are. So who are we serving and for what purpose? And this is the endless redundant cycle of addiction, where we soothe this yearning, this desire to find fulfillment in the unknown, and the unknown is that connection, that cord to our totality. We often live from the body or the mind or both, but we're missing the most important fundamental aspect of ourself, which is our spirit self. It is our essence. So when we come into that trinity of self, the mind body connected to spirit and soul, we have that totality in our own humanity to then be in within the humanity that lives around us as a whole. But when we come into our life and our challenges, let's say as a fragment, we're not seeing the whole picture because we're fragmented from our totality. So you can't see that the challenges that arise are aspects of yourself, they're archetypes of yourself coming to surface through your relationships, through your sickness, through all of these events, trying to bring you back home to your seat of your soul, trying to remind you or shining light on you that you are this significant, powerful, illuminated spirit in a body, a fragment of a great whole. And when we're displaced in our ignorance, let's say, we're displaced in the life around us. So it's very difficult to listen to that voice that's constantly sounding off and the red flags and the alarms saying, don't eat that, because it feels better it's soothing for us to hold on to something that feels good in a temporary moment than to feel the pain of that yearning, which we can't identify, which is literally a lack of connect to our entire self, to our spirit self. So it's a will, it's a desire to know thyself, quote unquote, know thyself truly, to then find placement within yourself and within the world. Because like I said, you move disobedience to a loyalty towards yourself, and you move away from, the redundant process of the to-do lists and the to-do lists that are nagging at you. Don't do this, don't say that, don't eat this and that. And this is self-hate. Naturally, this becomes a self-hating process because you're failing at it. So you end up hurting yourself more in that process, because every time you deny yourself that voice, your heart knows that it's denying, and this is the pain you suffer more. So it just keeps stacking. So in my own personal journey, and when I meet with others, it's the ability to know your true self and to come into a deeper understanding of what that is. And that looks like different for everybody. Everybody's journey is different. But the first and the foremost factor to that journey is the ability to say, I am ready and I surrender. And I don't know how I'm going to do this, and this is okay. And I ask whatever it may be, the angels, your guide, God, Buddha, whatever your belief system is. Belief systems are beautiful, not in the indoctrinated or religious aspect necessarily, but they're beautiful to give us something greater than self to hold on to. That's the aspect of a greater whole. And when we can come into that and just surrender, saying, I am ready, pierce my heart with the truth. I am here for the truth, and I will comply, and give me the patience to do so, and speak to yourself in a loving way. The other thing that's a great practice that I started to do in my journey, when I realized how much harm I had implicated on my body through the healing process, through the intravenous's, through the 30 supplements I was taking a day, through the rigorous training and running and sports to keep a certain shape. All of these types of things were in a way self-destructive and the contrary to self-love, because self-love should be beautiful. It should be gentle. It should be forgiving. It should be non-judgmental. And what I started to do was look at myself in the mirror, as uncomfortable as it was, naked and raw, and, look at myself and just say, I love you, and you are worth honoring, because you have been given to me as a gift for something greater to be a conduit of this light. And I feel that I am ready to take on this role, to commit to the responsibility of being human in this life as a collective. And it was uncomfortable for a while because, looking at yourself, and I lacked confidence and self-worth. And slowly but surely, you start to become very familiar with your essence and yourself when you start to have these communions and relationships with yourself, which is ultimately spirit, and more so communion with the divine, with the greater source, whatever that might look like. And sometimes it might even start off feeling silly, like, okay, I know you're there somewhere. I know that there's spirit. I know spirit's in me. I'm not used to this just yet, but I would like to know this part of me, and guide me. I'm here to listen. And the second you tune in, it's like any decision, it's any commitment to any relationship. We commit to our relationships every day, whether it's our partner, our spouse, our children, workforce. And every day you show up to that relationship, and you're putting energy in cultivating these relationships. It's no different than cultivating a relationship with your inner self. You go into dialogue with yourself, and sometimes if you even feel nothing or hear nothing, know that there is something greater than the eye can see that is transcending that moment of doubt, and it will come into surface. Another great way that I always do is I write in my journal. Same thing. The journal is a safe place, a safe home where you have dialogues with self, with spirit, no judgment. There's nobody there to look at you, to read your work. And it's just you outpour. Sometimes it can be an outpouring, an output, and sometimes it can be an input. And when you output, you start to unveil the layers of yourself, and you'll start to kind of go into a receiving. And when you go in with no intention other than just to simply return home to that innocence, to discover yourself and go into a creative process of just communicating. Um, it's quite miraculous what happens. And then, the synchronicities will start to come. The second you tune in, it's like picking up a phone and dialing a number. You've dialed the number, and now there's going to be an answer on the other end. It's that simple. Yet we in our society, we have this incredible habit to complicate life and to complicate everything. And this is what makes everything feel so impossible. And it makes us feel so inferior to greatness because we put it so far away from us and distance ourselves from it because, oh no, that's saved for, those smart people. That's saved for the Tibetan monk who's on the mountain. Or the genius is saved for only the inventors and the, top producers in our world. And yet it's not true. Every single one of us are identical in essence because we are of one essence. We are of one omnipresence. Our unique expression is different and, and it's unique for that reason. But the essence in which we're all born of, that perfected seed of light, encoded with perfection from divine creator, whatever that may be for an individual, is exactly the same in all of us. And that's what makes us so beautiful as a humanity, because when we come into unity with ourselves, we can come to see each other through the eyes of each other from soul to soul, understanding that this is another journey in front of me. The same essence as me in an individual expression. Therefore, there is no need for competition, for displacement, for disconnect, for separation, because we're all here doing the exact same thing in a unique expression. And what you're going to bring to me, Whitney, I need to propel me on my journey and vice versa. And it makes no difference what we do in this world. It makes no difference your level of success, the color of your skin, your gender, because every single one of us is here to deliver a unique essence of the greater whole, which is the omnipresence in our own unique expression. And this creates the whole. So when we come into this perspective of life, you see there's no longer a suffering because there is such a great, vast story happening that purposes and redefines your position and essence in life. And this is where that journey of trying so hard to find the voice changes. It pivots from trying to being, because you already know that you are a part of something. And like I said, you just have to pick up the phone and dial that number and tune into something greater than yourself, and the answers will come, the guidance will come, and you'll see it through that door you open and some random person starts talking to you. You'll see that that's a part of your path coming to you. You'll see it in a message that you see in a subway or on the back of a car. You'll see it in sacred numbers on a license plate. You'll see all these beautiful divine synchronicities coming to you as a greater message, and that is you unfolding in your path. The desire is just to will it to happen.
Yes, synchronicity is confirmation.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful one. And it usually sparks a light in us. It usually energizes us when we see the
Yeah.
synchronicities. It's actually really exciting. When